Welcome to another episode of Ask the Pastor. My name is Will McVeigh. I'm part of the session here at Chestnut Mountain, here with Rick Holmes, and we've been talking about the process that Flourish has been bringing to Chestnut Mountain, the process of gathering information, interviews, surveys, communication, and our ultimate goal is to get a new pastor. And to get a new pastor, there's always that search committee for a pastor. Can you tell us about that process, Rick, and when that might be formed and moving forward there?
Absolutely. So I want to ask you a couple questions, Will, because I think it's important for us to think about this from the end, and then we'll work back to what we need to do to get to that end. So how long would you like Chestnut Mountain to be fruitful and effective for Jesus Christ?
Until he returns.
Okay, I love that answer. And that we at Flourish, and my desire has always been in a church to help a church grow, develop, position itself so that its ministry might last that long. And it's really a responsibility of the leadership to ask, how do we steward the life of the church? How do we address things that would be impediments for the church to continue? So we think it's really important for Chestnut Mountain to be asking in a really long-term way, what's it going to take for Chestnut Mountain to have another 150 years of ministry if the Lord tarries, if Jesus doesn't come back before then? And so having the right pastor is one of those pieces. It's an absolute essential part of that. And we all want God's man, right?
Amen.
And so let me ask you, what kind of search process do you want? Do you want a mediocre one?
I don't think so.
I've asked this now to about 60 people, and they all give the same answer. Nobody wants a mediocre process. Do you just want the average process?
No, we can do better than that.
Well, you can. And the average process gives you about a 50% chance that you'll have a pastor who will stay for 7 years. How long would you like your next pastor to be here?
37 years.
Okay. Well, that's an ambitious goal, and not everybody is wired up to be able to serve that long in a church. And we tease as in my world that if he's good, you want him to stay, and if he's not good, you hope he'll leave. And but actually, about half of the PCA churches that follow the typical process end up with having a pastor who will stay longer than 7 years, and half of them less than 7 years. And when a pastor stays less than 7 years, the church loses the opportunity to really benefit from that relationship. And so it's critically important that Chestnut Mountain find the right person. There's so much at stake if you don't get this right. And so let's just talk about what's a typical search process. So typically what happens is a church has a congregational meeting. Perhaps the session asks the congregation to think about people in various categories: elder, deacon, women, leadership teams, at large people. Or in a large church, it's pretty common for the session to actually recommend a slate of people to the session. And in the typical church, the people who are nominated have no experience actually conducting a search. They're never been trained to do a search, even if they've participated in one. I would say a lot of times what happens in that group of people is there is one or two dominant people. And they often begin to drive the process toward the candidate they're attracted to. So every search committee needs to create a profile, and you just are not ready to have a search until you have a profile. And so much hangs on the profile and the committee's commitment to actually search in light of the profile. So again, in a typical search process, 7 to 9 people behind closed doors do a number of things. Some of the things they have to do, but the first question they will answer after they've gotten themselves organized, here's a chairman, here's somebody who's gonna take in correspondence, and so forth. They will ask this question, what were our pastor's strengths and his weaknesses? Everybody knows that every pastor has strengths and weaknesses. Nobody does it all well. And John was a very, very talented pastor. And so that conversation is going to take place. And those 7 people are going to write a profile. The leadership of the church is not going to see this profile. It's just going to, typically, it just happens in the committee. And so there's not even any confirmation from the leadership. It's pretty common, though, for a search committee to send a survey out to the congregation so that they get the read of what the congregation wants. So I've asked each of the groups I've met with, how old is the range of ages that are going to be desirable for a pastor?
It's an educated guess, 45 to 55?
Probably every search committee wants a man experienced enough to have wisdom and be able to take them as a church ahead, but also they don't want somebody they think is on the edge of retirement, who's going to see this as a retirement opportunity and they're just going to coast. And a lot of times churches think that the solution to growing younger, their demographics in the church, is to hire a younger person. That guarantees that's going to happen because a young pastor is going to attract young people. That is a fallacious idea. It doesn't work like that. There's a lot of other things that have to be in play for that to happen. And so the typical committee needs to create several things. It needs to be able to describe the church, it needs to be able to describe the community that it's in, it needs to be able to describe what it is they're looking for a pastor. And so the committee, this 7 to 9 people, will take their collective insight about the church and describe the church. And they'll write up some documents, but they alone will say, this is where we need to go for the future. They typically, especially when there's a long-term pastor, either go out and try to find somebody just like their last pastor to replace them, or they'll look at those weaknesses and they'll say, we need somebody who's strong in those areas where they were weak. But they'll ignore the strengths that this pastor had. So John was a great shepherd. And what typically happens is that when somebody's weak in something else, a committee will be over here, they'll swing over to here, and they'll leave out these key strengths. And then there's a mismatch. And that mismatch usually it'll frustrate the life of the church because this person really isn't a good fit for the culture and experience in the life of the people of the congregation. There are lots of factors like that that come into play. In a typical search, what happens is that the committee sends out an announcement. It's posted. Today, most of those announcements are posted on digital job boards. And they will receive people who are interested. They might ask them for tapes and references and They might even send them a questionnaire to ask them some things about theology and get their views, and about hot button social issues, contemporary issues in the life of the church. And they'll look at all of that and they'll decide, we're going to have an initial conversation with some of the people. And that'll probably be a 30-minute conversation. And what they'll do is they're just narrowing, it's like a funnel. They're narrowing the ones that come in, and then some of those people, they'll say, we're not interested. Others of those people, they'll say, let's do a longer interview. And somewhere in that process, between the first and the second interview, they will listen to sermons. There are, for most pastors post-pandemic, hundreds of sermons now to listen to. And so the candidate can't just cherry pick a few of his greatest hits. Right? People have the opportunity on a search committee. And the last 2 search committees I've served on, people went out and found all sorts of sermons. The days of the pastor sending a few tapes, they're long gone. And they can find these on the internet, whether the pastor wants them to find them or not. And what will happen here over time is that after that interview, typically a few people will be invited, one at a time. It might only be 1 or 2 people who will be invited to come on site, and there'll be an in-person, face-to-face time together over probably a couple days. We'll give the potential candidate, the potential new pastor, the opportunity to see the community, to interact with you all face-to-face. You know, we've all been on video calls for a while now. We know there are limitations with that, and so having this in-person context really important. They'll probably meet the elders at that point and have the opportunity, the elders, to give the committee their sense of that. That's pretty typical. But somewhere along the way, the 3 C's are in play of the search process. I talked about these last night, and I'm just going to put you on the spot. Do you remember what the 3 C's of the search committee are?
Charisma, character, oh boy,
and competence.
Competency.
Right. So character is the fundamental biblical qualification for an elder. And pretty much character doesn't change a lot in people. And so you want someone who has outstanding Christ-like character to be your pastor, like John did, or does have. I shouldn't speak of him in the past as if he's no longer walking among the living. Because if a person has significant character defects, and especially if they're not working on them, it's going to have an impact in the life of the church. And if they have serious character flaws, you're going to have a problem as a church. And so character is so crucial. And it's one of the reasons why search committees want to have conversations with references because they want to gauge the character of the person. Often what happens, of course, is when I am asked to submit references, I ask the people who not only know me well, but who like me. People are going to give me a good reference. But that isn't enough for a committee to be confident that it's heard what it needs to hear. Because people will hold back things because they are cheering and rooting for their pastor friend, right? Mm-hmm. They know he's looking. He feels a sense that he needs to move on. He's done what he can where he is, and so there are things they won't say. And so one of the things we'll do, we will train a search committee, and we will coach a search committee so that it has a great process and we'll put into place the best practices. The things that, so thousands, hundreds of thousands of searches have been done, and a lot is known about what makes for a good process. And that's one of the things we'll bring to the table that wouldn't happen in a typical church. It's really one of the strengths of engaging in an intentional interim process. And the two organizations I've worked for have helped about 1,500 churches find a pastor. And so we have a lot of experience, and we're also very familiar with wisdom that's been gleaned from the larger church about how to do this. And so there's a great way to do it, and that is time-tested and proven, and there are lots of very poor ways to do it. But what tends to happen here that gets into a problem is as this funnel narrows and people begin to get to know these candidates, what takes place is they fall in love with somebody. So they are typically drawn to their preaching, and then when they interact with them, they start liking their personality. And then the profile that they wrote about who they need for the next pastor goes out the window. It's just forgotten. And I've watched this happen in search committees, even the ones I've worked with when I've been trying to help with the process. And part of what Flourish does that is pretty unique is that we hold the committee's feet to the fire, both in who gets selected and through the process, to run the process not one man against another, not a beauty contest, if you will, not who looks like the best person to us out of the folks we have, but it'll be the man against the profile. Who best fits the profile? And so the Flourish process tries to make sure that the committee doesn't have charisma and preaching competency be the only things that are really considered. And sometimes committees will even overlook character flaws that have been discovered because they're so attractive. And here's where the dominant persons or even kind of a political process can happen in a committee, that those that have reservations or maybe who think this isn't the right person, they get muffled. Because sometimes in a very dominant, in a group where there's a few dominant people, you kind of get signaled it's not okay to share what your thoughts. You can't communicate what you're thinking to people. So that's a typical process, and it has very mixed results, as I've said. A 1 out of 2 probability that you'll have a pastor, say 7 years. We at Flourish think that is a terrible outcome for a church. We don't want that for you. We want you to humanly have the best outcome and to have the best process possible so that you can discern who is God's man for Chestnut Mountain. So the key answer here in order, when is the church ready to have a search process, is when it has a pastoral profile. Now there's some other things that need to go into the pastoral profile, and we need to talk about one of them in particular that is really essential for a good search process.
And let me just say thank you, Rick, and to Flourish, because they bring a lot of experience and a heart for God's church. And that doesn't go unnoticed. We are blessed to have you, and we're grateful. So thank you.
Well, thank you so much, Will.